I'm sure you heard the news that Mark Wahlberg bought a house in Delray Beach, Florida. Yes, it's true, and I want to tell you all about it. So join us today. We're going to take a little ride. I'm going to take you inside Stone Creek Ranch, tell you all about Mark Wahlberg's Delray Beach, Florida home. Here we are, it's the end of 2025, and I have lived in Florida for 20 years. I moved to Florida 20 years ago, December of 2005. My kids were 1.5 years old. Had to convince Wendy to move to Florida, and we've not looked back since. And I'm actually thinking of doing something to mark my 20th anniversary of living in Florida. So I moved to Florida in 2005, December of 2005, and we were in the middle of what everyone would now recognize as a massive housing bubble in the United States of America. Everything was on fire. Prices were only going up. And, a lot of people ask me, like, as a real estate agent, like, what do I think, like, the future of the market? I am a mark-to-market guy. I think that everything known about markets is known now, and everything is priced now. We don't know what tomorrow will bring, and I always believe that. So in 2005, we didn't know we were in a bubble. I actually believed that September 11th was going to burst the bubble. Prices were so high the summer of 2001 that 9/11 was going to burst the housing bubble. Turns out it was the bottom. The U.S. housing bubble from 2000 to 2008 was an incredible run. So I actually thought it was the top when it was the bottom. So I cannot predict markets. So December of 2005, we were in a big housing bubble, but things were great. I moved to Woodfield Country Club. I rented a house for a year to see if I would like it, and we loved it. We've been here ever since, 20 years. Like I say, the kids grew up here. They were babies, and now they're in college. I decided to stop being a lawyer. I did not like the practice of law, and I became a real estate agent in 2005, really in 2006 when I moved to Florida, and I used that skill to actually buy the house I currently live in and buy and sell real estate for my friends and family. And I didn't know that I was going to do it as a career. I just knew that I was always doing everything for sale by owner. They say if you can't fight them, join them. So I got my real estate licenses when I moved to Florida, bought my house, bought some houses for friends and family, but I wasn't really practicing as a real estate agent, but I wasn't really practicing law either. So I needed something to do, right? Because the kids are going to say, like, well, what does your dad do? So I actively would network and tell people I was a real estate agent and not some of the other investments and entrepreneurial things that I do. And it served me well. And I started buying and selling for my father's friends, and then started buying and selling for people I met from networking. And I still remember to this day, the first time I sold a house for a stranger, right? I was not a friend or family. It was just from my networking. Someone hired me. They wanted to buy a house. They bought a house for $1 million. I made a 3% commission. I made 30 grand. It was fantastic and easy. And I wanted to do it again because, man, 30,000 is a lot of money. Fast forward to the housing crash. 2008, 2009 was a housing crash. In that housing crash, we had decided, we being my family, had decided to buy bad mortgages, non-performing mortgages. Everybody else was going to the foreclosure sales, but we were actually buying the notes from the banks to take it off their hands so they didn't have to go to the sale. We would take it to the foreclosure sales for them. But over the course of time, we would actually contact our borrowers, and a lot of times we were able to refinance them and keep them in their homes. Or if we couldn't, we could do cash for keys. So instead of foreclosing on them, we could give them money to moving expenses and get some rent and make it a very easy process for them. And then they would deed the house over to us. I started selling real estate from my portfolio. We were doing a lot of it in New Jersey, and I told my partners, like, let's do some in Florida. So I started I started acquiring these properties from either foreclosure or cash for keys, and then I would rehab them, paint them, stage them, make them nice, market them. I would be the listing agent, whereas in New Jersey, for the core of our investments, we had to hire a realtor to be the agent, but I'm going to make the 3% on the listing side by listing my own properties. I can't even believe I'm saying this in public and on my podcast, but yeah, so this is what I did. This is actually how I started in my real estate career, in a bad market, in a terrible market. After the 2008-2009 crash, I was making a reputation because I was selling properties when nobody could sell anything. Why was I selling them? Well, I was pricing them right. Housing prices fell in half in Florida. So I was pricing them right. I wasn't holding on to some imaginary or last year's or 5 years ago's price. And housing is an essential service. People do need to move, buy bigger houses, buy smaller houses. So I was pricing them right, so they were selling. So I was getting a reputation as a real estate agent who could sell because I was closing one house a month. I was acquiring a house, fixing it up, and closing every month, but also helping my father's friends in the country clubs and the mansions. So I was selling country clubs and mansions, making money by cash for keys and rehabbing less desirable 3-2s all through Palm Beach and Broward County, Equus community, Wellington, Loxahatchee, Broward County, Coconut Creek. I was all over Palm Beach and Broward County rehabbing properties. I remember this beautiful house on the Intercoastal in Pompano Beach that I was rehabbing these properties and selling them. And that's how I gained my reputation as a great real estate agent, because I was selling in a bad market and I was doing transactions when everything else was sitting. So how does that bring us to Stone Creek Ranch? The developer of Stone Creek Ranch, Ken Endelson, Kenco Homes, is a great developer here in town, and he developed the Oaks. And when I moved to Florida, a lot of people were moving out of Woodfield and St. Andrews country clubs into the Oaks to have that country club lifestyle without the golf and the expense. And the Oaks is an incredible community. The developer found himself with certain buyers that wanted bigger houses and wanted more land. So the next development he had scheduled for when he finished the Oaks was the land where Stone Creek Ranch is now. And what he ended up doing was, instead of making an Oaks type development there, he ended up making large home sites, big sprawling estates, because he knew he had buyers. So in the Oaks, where you want singles, doubles, triples, the people that were going for the triples and the home runs, he saw that there was room. He saw there was a next level, and that could only be in that 2000 up bubble market, where you would see that next level, these grand slam real estate deals. So he developed Stone Creek Ranch into 37 parcels, 2.5 acres per parcel. It should have had 300 homes or 400 homes, like a Bridges or a Lotus, but he developed this into 37 home sites, each a minimum of 2.5 acres. And all was going well, and the houses that they built were incredible. And Wayne Huizenga Jr. bought a double lot and built the largest single-family residence on one level, one story, in the state of Florida. And Samari Roll from the Baltimore Ravens bought an incredible house, but instead of a tennis court, he put it in a basketball court. Lou Piancone, Roma Foods, very nice man. He built himself a beautiful mansion. A lot of very wealthy people living in Stone Creek Ranch in their 2.5 acres homes. It was not fully developed. Then the market crashed. Right? Those bubbles, those big runs, they can't last forever. So, and if anybody has seen like The Big Short, right, this is exactly what this is about, the book or the movie. So the market crashed. Homes weren't selling. None of those big homes were selling. Nothing in the Oaks was even selling. How would a big home sell? My father did a deal with Ken Endelson to kind of like refinance his position. And we took the 19 undeveloped lots that he had at Stone Creek Ranch as collateral. Basically, so I got my broker's license. We're going to end up with all of these lots in Stone Creek Ranch that we're going to have to sell. So I figured I'd get my license so I can run the sales center over there. My dad goes, nah, it's just a financing deal. Just a financing deal, but we know how financing deals end. We were in a foreclosure crisis in this country. All you heard on the news was foreclosures. I'm not here to bash Ken, right? Ken's a businessman, and this was an arm's length transaction, right? But he was in the bird's eye seat. He got a buyer for one of these lots. He would sell the buyer the lot and pay us off on our loan. Is he going to buy the lots back from us, or is he going to pay off the loan, or is he going to walk away? And I would have to sell these 19 lots, and that's exactly what happened. So I took over the sales center at Stone Creek Ranch. I met Maureen Murtaugh, who was the top salesman for Kenco and handling Stone Creek Ranch, and we partnered up and we worked together to sell the 19 lots that me and my family owned at Stone Creek Ranch. I became the president of the homeowners association because there were people that were living in the community. And oh my goodness, I remember the first HOA meeting that I went to, and they were mad at me. They were all like, they were yelling at me, screaming at me. I'm like, what are you mad at me for? What did I do? Like, I didn't do anything. I bought these lots, right? I purchased these lots. My goal is to make Stone Creek Ranch amazing. I got 19 of them. We have to find buyers and we have to finish out this community. We could have made the decision to build houses and find buyers. That's not what I do. I'm not a builder. And the market was shit. We took over the marketing. I became president of the homeowners association. I'd have the monthly HOA meetings, and we worked with buyers. There were some other lots that other developers had owned, so we worked with buyers, whether they were my buyers or not, and got their plans approved, and we started building houses. So one of the houses was actually when I first came in 2009, when I came in and took over the HOA, I saw one of the houses. They weren't paying their HOA quarterly assessments. They were actually in foreclosure with the bank. It was a $20+ million foreclosure. It was crazy. So I go over to the house. It's all haunted looking. It looked like a European castle. But because it was abandoned and there were cobwebs and everything was overgrown, it like really felt like you were on an adventure in like, Northern England or something on this estate. I used to go over and give people tours of it. And I didn't go to the foreclosure sale to bid on it. The banks will bid their mortgage and then end up owning the property, right? So if they have a $20+ million mortgage, who's going to outbid them at the sale, right? They're probably just going to bid what they're owed. That's what I thought. The person that bought it, they bought it for like $2.5 million, right? The bank just let the bidding happen. They didn't want to be involved in this property. They didn't want to come over and take this property back. Now they'd have to maintain it, have the liability if somebody tripped and fall. It was such a mess. So the people that bought it for $2.5 million sold it 5 days later for $3.5 million. I was so mad because I should have been there. I should have went to the auction. So when the next property went to auction, I made sure not to make that mistake again, but now it's all done on the computer. So I was on the computer and I was bidding on this house for sale, and it's like $100 increments, and you bid and you go, finally gets to your highest number, but you still bid a little bit more. And I was going back and forth with this other bidder on $100 increments. It felt like 20 minutes. And I finally go, all right, my last bid. All right, one more. Okay. If he outbids me, I'm not. And then he didn't outbid me. And then I was the high bidder. And then I bought the property. But I got a call a couple of days later. I was the person you bid against. This person wanted to meet me. I was a little nervous. So we go meet this guy for lunch, and he comes in, and he's a nice, Jewish guy. And he comes in with his partner. He looked like a little Jewish accountant or something. I'm not going to have the fight that I'm geared up for. And we got to talking, and we became really, really good friends and colleagues in the real estate business. He's I put in one of the three. There's about three people that I can learn from, that I could have real estate conversations with, that I go to ask a question, and he's one of those. I made a friend and $1 million. So it's the greatest story ever. I love when people ask me how we met. Whenever I show a property, I picture myself living in the property, not for me, but like what it would be like, right? And this doesn't have to be a mansion. It could be a 2-bedroom, but what it would be like, where you would have your breakfast, where you'd have your dinner, if friends came over, where they would go to the bathroom, right? What is it like to live in that property? I love my wife. I got 2 kids. I don't need something that big. And let me tell you, I do have a nice house, right? But so I didn't need something that big. And when we foreclosed on that one mansion, like, oh, do I want to live there? But it was too big. Sidewalks, both sides of the street. I think that's very important. You walk your dog. And there's communities in Boca Raton that don't have sidewalks. So how do you go for a morning walk? Certainly during COVID, we all had to go for those walks. Public water and public sewer, so you don't have a septic system. You don't use well water. That's very important. Natural gas. Some of the bigger communities in Boca Raton, La Lac or whatnot, don't have natural gas. So that's really nice. So all of those features make Stone Creek Ranch an amazing place to live, besides being in 2.5 acres, guard gated. And that's what brings us to Marky Mark. Everybody's surprised. Why would he live west? If I had this kind of money, he'd live by the water. Well, if you live by the water, you can't have 2.5 acres gated. I mean, you can, but it would be $100 million. And let me tell you, the property he bought, it's not just a house. It's a resort. Most houses in Stone Creek Ranch are not like this. When we bought the 19 lots, one of the first things I did to market them was to break them down into A lots, B lots, and C lots. which ones was the best, which ones are the middle, which ones are the worst. Not the worst being bad. I just wanted to know when I'm pricing and when I'm selling, right, which was one of the better lots. This particular lot we put in the A level. That was probably a mistake. And I can explain why. It's not a bad lot because I know these 19 lots as if they are my children. I know what's good about them and what's bad about them. And if someone came to me to choose one of the 19 lots, I could say all of their, as we sold them off and there were less lots left, you could be less picky. They're all amazing in their own way. And when we did the deal with Kenny, this was the island. There were 3 lots in the center of Stone Creek Ranch, all surrounded by water, the island. So those were the premier lots. And one of the things that the seller told us was, don't give those away, right? Make sure you get good money for those. Let's say we bought them for $500K each, and I was selling them for $700, $750, $800. The lot that Mark bought, not to him, but to the original person that we sold it to, for $900,000. And then over the course of that person, and this happened in a lot of lots, they've changed their mind. So one of the reasons I say that no one sold more lots in Stone Creek Ranch than I did was I sold the 19 lots, but some of the lots that I sold, I actually listed them again when the buyer decided they didn't want to own it anymore. So that particular lot 20, and I know the lots all by number. Everybody else knows them by address. So Mark's lot, the reason why lot 20 is a little bit of a negative is I told you there were 3 lots on the island surrounded by water. Well, 19 and 21 were on the end. So they're surrounded by water like this. But 20 is not surrounded by water. 20 is surrounded by lots 19 and 21. So it only has water in the back. And we priced all 3 of them the same as if they were equal. And the only way they'd be equal is if someone bought a double, or even if someone bought all 3. And that's what actually happened with 20. Someone bought a double, but then they built on one, but they didn't build on the other. And then we sold that one off. So I was a listing agent. I don't know if I was the buyer in that transaction. And then the person that bought it, AK Builders, Aldo, bought about 5 or 6 lots, and he made these mega mansions that put the rest of Stone Creek Ranch to shame. Palazzo del Lago, one was called Villa Spectre. And if you Google these things, Palazzo del Lago, that's the one that Mark Wahlberg bought. It's like a Venetian Palace, Casino Spectre. These are not houses, these are resorts. They're absolutely amazing. I've never seen anything like them. When the last group of builders built, and they were amazing mansions that really blew me away, they were still not of this level. So when people say 47.5 million, most houses in Stone Creek Ranch are not as good as that. He can do all of his entertaining, bar, food, everything at the house. It's nicer than any hotel in the Caribbean, the pool and the landscaping and everything. So having everything there is just an absolute wonderful thing. And he'd be able to really live very well in privacy. One of the things I also liked about Stone Creek Ranch is right off the turnpike, you have the Atlantic Avenue exit for the turnpike. It doesn't take you long to get there. So I was talking to someone who had a boat, like to go to the Keys. Well, if he lived in East Boca, it would take him forever to get out of East Boca, maybe go over the drawbridge. By the time he got to 95, dealing with traffic. Whereas at Stone Creek Ranch, pop on the turnpike in 40 minutes, that it might just take that first person just to get started on 95, this person would already be in Broward County, not halfway to the Keys, but well on the way to Miami or the Keys. So that's another great thing about this. Theoretically, I don't know. I'm not a celebrity. I don't know how celebrities live, but if he needs to go to Miami, I don't know if he's going to fly out of Antiquers or Boca Raton Airport. I've heard there are 2 people with helicopters. I don't know the current HOA rules. I could probably find out. Easy access to the world, to Miami Airport, jump on the turnpike, get down to Miami. It is so beautiful when you pull up to Stone Creek Ranch, the waterfalls, the guard gate, as they let you in, there's beautiful bridges and landscaping, and you're really, really transformed. Your blood pressure goes down as you enter the community, and it's just an absolute wonderful place for somebody like that, for someone looking for the privacy and the absolute top-notch build-out community. Nowhere better in the world. And there's a lot of good reasons why he would have moved there. And I'm very, very happy for him. And I'm hoping to meet him one day.